We need more white guys giving their insight on things they don't understand.
Where's the banjo?
This guy thinks he can sing.
Oh my god, it's so evil.
Gordon Ramsay, I'm awaiting your response. It is 7:30 p.m. and I still don't have a Valentine's Day. All right. The universe. What a concept. You know, the universe is a little bit like the human hand. For example, you have Grauman's center right here, and then you have undiscovered worlds and Sector 8, and up here is Tittleman's crest. So you kind of picture it's a little bit like a leaf, or it's not a bowl.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. That was the universe from. Wow.
Hey guys.
That was the universe from Tim and Eric Awesome Show.
Oh, that's why I recognized it. Okay.
I just thought it was appropriate for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
It's like one of my most favorite bits ever.
It's really good.
My favorite one is when he talks about, he's like, if you could put the universe into a tube, you'd end up with a very long tube.
Wow, no way.
Probably extending twice the size of the universe, because when you collapse the universe, it expands, and you wouldn't want to put it into a tube.
Yeah. That's so dumb.
It's the worst.
Oh man, I
But it's
clipped
great.
so hard right there.
Yeah, maybe I should
Turn me just a wee bit. All right, there we go.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Sweet.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome
Keep all
to...
of that sound testing in.
We will. Welcome to the Podwood Forecast. I'm Clifford, and
I am Mitchell.
and you have short hair.
I do. I chopped it
Shorter
off.
hair. Yeah.
It's still kind of long for like stereotypical male standards, but it's very short compared to what it was.
Yeah. So for those of the audience who don't know what we look like, or don't watch the video that we definitely don't have, how long was your hair before?
It was longer than both of my sister's hair. It like
Was it like down to your nipples?
It was below my nipples,
Oh.
and it was like halfway down my back. It was really long.
Wow.
And that was when it was dry. If it was wet, because I have very thick, like wavy hair, so if it was wet, it was like even longer. And I was just over
Be
it.
very heavy.
There's been a heat wave with like 100% humidity, and it's been 90 degrees, and I've just been like miserable. I hated having hair. I told myself I wanted to grow it out really long at least once in my life, and I did it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll do it again, but the length it is right now, I think, is what I really like it to be.
It looks good.
Yeah,
You look sharp.
And it's technically a new hairstyle too, because when I ever had it this length, I always did like bangs because I was like super emo and cool.
You look like.
But now it's like parted and like
You
kinda
look like a
pushed back.
prince, so like a medieval prince.
Yeah, I got the little like M wave split.
And not like an accurate medieval prince where it's just like a bowl cut, but like a movie medieval prince.
Yeah, it's like that medium hair. It's kind of swept back.
Yeah.
I use product now.
Oh, I actually need to get some product.
I use some modeling clay, whatever it's called.
What?
So that stuff
You
in the
put
little jar.
Play-Doh in your hair?
And you get a fingerful and you put it on your hand, and then you rub your hands together, and then you just push your hair back a little.
Where may people find this product online?
I got it at Kroger.
I thought it was going to turn into a sponsorship.
But yeah, I feel a lot better. I don't
money.
sweat. I don't sweat as much now, so
That's good.
And my showers are 20 minutes shorter.
Oh yeah, I know how that is. Yeah,
shampooing with long hair, like, especially how long mine was, like wash and how thick it was. I would have to like sit there, like with the water hitting me for like 10 minutes to get it all out, and then I would still have soap in my hair.
My hair wasn't as long as yours, but I definitely noticed a time shortage after I cut my hair off.
It would shed all the time too. There was hair everywhere. I was like, man, and I was like, is this normal? And my sisters were like, yeah. So I was like, am I just like going bald? There's no way. And they're like, no, you just like hair just falls out all the time when you have long hair.
Yeah.
Like when you brush it and you're in the shower. And it's all
but
over
you
the
still
wall.
have an amazing amount of hair left. Apparently. So
I feel good.
That's how I feel when my facial hair plucks out. I'm like, I feel like I don't have that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening to our episode about hair.
See you next week.
Next time. Actually, so we are going to talk about what we promised 2 episodes ago.
Yes.
About a little game called Outer Wilds. But we decided we were going to talk about some other things as well.
Correct.
Before we get to that, so that we just seem a little bit more current and hip, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about one of the bigger films that is out today. It is The Suicide Squad.
Robert Dubois. He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
I'm not joining your Suicide Squad.
We'll see.
My court date is coming up. And Miss Waller said maybe you could help me out.
You're flexing in my door!
Everyone stand down.
Miss Waller, I don't...
Stand down!
I wouldn't take such extreme measures if this mission went more important than you could possibly imagine. Are you in or out? Good. Let's meet your team.
It's okay, I'm not okay.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities.
I need to feel the raindrops on my head, on my head.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Had to go number 2.
Good to know.
Is this thing a dog?
A dog? What kind of dog do you think it is, mate?
I'm gonna go with Afghan Hound.
Oh my god, is it a werewolf?
Yo, they sent me next to a werewolf! Yo, let me out!
Hey, he's not a werewolf, okay? He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know.
Yes.
It's the real Suicide Squad.
The only one.
Yeah, it is the definitive
The only one that was
one.
ever made.
Yep. Jared Leto, what? I think he could make an interesting Joker. He's never done it.
Yeah, he's a great actor. Oh, man.
Yeah. So, The Suicide Squad is now in theaters. It's still in theaters, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, it's
Probably, maybe.
Yeah, I imagine so. It's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
We just wanted to give our thoughts on it. And Mitchell, what did you think about it?
I really liked it. It was probably the most unsurprising movie for me this year, just because I was really excited from the trailer. Well, I was excited from the inception of it,
Yeah.
conception of it.
Yeah.
I was excited when it got announced, because
When it was given birth.
because James Gunn was announced to direct it, and I really like James Gunn's directing, and he did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which are my favorite Marvel MCU movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's I thought he was a great choice for it. And the original Suicide Squad movie that came out a few years back was terrible. Like really, really bad.
What are you talking about? It never happened.
Yeah, what? But
The
yeah,
David Ayer Suicide Squad.
but I was like super excited because I was like, man, he's perfect for this. Like, he will do a great job. He's really good at directing multiple characters, giving everyone a chance. Like, and that was like a problem with the original one. And so
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is gonna be really fun. It's gonna be really goofy and funny and violent and crazy, and that's exactly what it was. And I was very pleased with it.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was kind of like, man, I hope it's not disappointing in any way. But then reviews came out and it was like, people like it. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. And then we watched it and I was like, yeah, that rocked. It was super fun.
Yeah.
It's probably it's the best, like, in this modern age of DC. It's easily the best like DC movie. You know?
Yeah.
It's the best DC movie since the Dark Knight movies.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but yeah, in our humble opinion, you know, there's a lot out there that a certain sect of people that would disagree.
Yeah.
But it is, for me, the best DC film since the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
I like it even better probably than Dark Knight Rises.
I do, yeah.
Just ultimately,
I don't really like Dark Knight Rises a ton nowadays.
I really like it. It's like a 7
fun.
out of 10 right now.
Yeah.
But it still has like a lot of problems. There's just a lot that I really like about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, The Suicide Squad was a total blast for me.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who is like really tired of the whole, I'm just exhausted with superhero stuff. For me, like you said, it was just a movie that was just out to have fun. And, you know, that's all I really wanted.
Right.
Didn't take itself too seriously. At moments it did.
Yeah, like it knows it's dumb, and it knows that its characters are really stupid, like Polka Dot Man and like a girl that controls rats. Like, here's my thing with this movie and why I was excited for it from like the announcement of it and especially the first trailer. My issue with a lot of comic book superhero movies nowadays, and I like a lot of them, they can be fun and just harmless, you know, and there are some I actually do really like the Guardians movies, for example. But I was getting super tired of modern comic book movies trying to modernize and make everything really cool and like especially in Marvel movies right now, it's like everyone just like wears mech suits. You know what I mean? Like even Spider-Man just has like a nano suit now. It's like, man, I like.
And you know, a lot of them are CGI.
Yeah,
I never realized that until like I saw a behind the scenes shot from Avengers.
Yeah,
like their space suits that they put on aren't even real.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's super weird, and like everything is just design wise, it's like everything's trying to be real. Everything wants to be taken very seriously, and sometimes it works. Like Infinity War and stuff is like great, you know. But but I think about old comics and I'm like, man, there's like Polka Dot Man, there's Calendar Man, there's
Calendar Man.
Yeah, like isn't Calendar Man actually like kind of in? I can't remember. I've read a review where someone said he was like they made a joke about him in the Suicide Squad, but I don't remember that. But it's just there was a ton of really stupid heroes back in the day and dumb villains too. I made a joke like a year ago about Starro because there is a comic about Starro the Conqueror, and it's just a big starfish that puts starfish on people's faces and controls them like zombies. And I was like, it would be really funny if they made a movie with that as a villain, but they're never going to because it's too goofy. Yeah. And so the trailer for this came out, and it's Starro, and it's just a big, and they didn't try to make it like super sick looking and like, no, he's just a big starfish with an eye. He looks exactly how he does in the comics. Like they used Polka Dot Man and like Rat Catcher, which is just like a person that controls rats. Like freaking John Cena's character with his like costume and his helmet. It's just like they took so many goofy characters and kept them goofy, but kind of made them cool somehow without like trying to make them visually look cool. Because John Cena looks ridiculous. Yeah, like Polka Dot Man, his costume is just the Polka Dot Man costume from like the 50s.
He looks like he's trying to like cosplay as Twister.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm like, man, I love that a comic book movie is taking advantage of its ridiculous source material and having fun with it. And then Starro is actually like a fun antagonist in this too. Like, it's crazy how if you have the right tone, you can get away with anything. Like a movie that would try too hard to take itself seriously, like this would all feel weird, you know? Yeah. But the writing of it, the tone of it, the visuals of it, and the fact that it's as violent as it is as well is just so funny. Like King Shark ripping people in half and stuff. It's like these little cartoon characters, but it's super violent and vulgar. Yeah. But it's also goofy and funny and not trying to be taken seriously, but it somehow works. Yeah. It's just, it feels like something that shouldn't work, but it does. Right. You know?
I mean, James Gunn was just the perfect guy for it because, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, it's become normal now, but people forget how, like, bizarre the concept was when they, like, first started promoting it. Yeah. Like, I remember the trailers came out, and I'm like, this looks stupid. Yeah. Like, what is this? A little raccoon and a tree. And
I remember being excited for it at the time because I was like, this is nothing like the other Marvel movies. So I got really excited. And I loved the other Marvel movies at the time. But I was like, this just looks like a weird sci-fi movie. Yeah. It doesn't even look like a comic book movie. It just looks like a fun, weird sci-fi movie.
And I had never heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
No one had, honestly.
Yeah, it was another, like, kind of Iron Man situation where people really didn't care about Iron Man before the Iron Man movie. But yeah, James Gunn was just perfect for like taking such an odd concept and like making it work because he knows how to have fun with it.
You know what's really impressive about it too is the fact that it still is taking into account that the first movie happens. Like, it has reoccurring characters. Like,
I feel like
Viola
a lot of moments of the Suicide Squad was like a big middle finger to the original one.
And we're gonna let's jump into spoilers probably.
Okay,
but
do spoilers.
But yeah, so Viola Davis's character returns and she was in the first movie, and she was just really boring. Didn't do it. She was
in the first
boring.
one, yeah.
And in this movie, she was actually like really like insane.
She's like off her
she's
head
like a
a lot of the
psycho,
times.
but like
But
Viola
she's
Davis
great.
she actually got to act in this, and she was actually a really good antagonist. Like, and some people from the first movie come back, like Boomerang Man and stuff, but they just kind of like kill them all right.
Yeah,
and I love it because they did all this promotional material with a lot of the characters and. Like Boomerang Man being back, and the guy in like the yellow and blue suit, and Weasel,
Pete Davidson,
Pete Davidson. I can't remember what his character's name was. But yeah, like they advertised them all, and then
as if they were like in the whole movie.
Yeah,
you know?
and I knew that there was gonna be a smaller amount of core characters, like with Harley and Idris Elba's character King Shark and stuff. But I didn't know I honestly wasn't expecting them to literally kill off like the first team. Like, they build up this team at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
like they're gonna be in a lot of the movie, and they actually introduce them, do all that, and they all just die in the intro, and it's super funny.
Even though technically the only originals in there were Harley Quinn and Boomerang.
Yeah, Captain Boomerang or whatever. And Captain
Boomerang
like
Captain Boomerang was like the least liked, I feel like, from the first one, because isn't the actor kind of known for being a douche or something?
I think people just don't like his acting, from what I know. I don't know anything about Jai Courtney personally, but I've never really liked him in a movie as an actor. But I feel like I didn't really, as much as I don't like the original Suicide Squad, I didn't really mind him in the first one. And I thought he was fine in this one too, but obviously he didn't get to do much. But it's kind of funny that they just kill off like 10 characters at the start, and
they keep Harley Quinn.
And the dude with the long white hair that he's in the opening shot.
I was most sad about that. I kind of wanted him to be more in the movie. Because I love that actor, and
he plays Yondu in Guardians, which is kind of funny.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why he probably looked familiar. But yeah, he gets killed. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought the way they like introduce him, I thought he was going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's super funny. Like, it actually makes you be like, wow, anyone could die. And other main characters do die.
Yeah.
My favorite one dies.
Yeah.
Polka Dot Man.
Yeah, spoilers. Yeah.
Like, none of the characters are safe, and I actually really like that.
Yeah, there's actual consequences
right
to everything. Even though, I mean, I guess in Suicide Squad there are a couple of characters that they just kill.
The man who can climb anything.
Yeah.
They just kill it. Like,
but it doesn't
that's
really
kind of it, though.
It doesn't really make a point, though. It's like, okay, that was pointless.
Now we know that was just a way to establish we blow up your head if you try to run away. But they establish that so much better in this one. They just are like, hey, this will happen.
Yeah.
And then they find a creative way to actually show it at the beginning when the one guy gets scared and runs away.
Yeah.
And then it reincorporates the bird that he killed in the beginning, and a bird eats his guts after he's dead. And that.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, like because he kills the bird at the beginning, and then when he's dead, it's another bird that kind of looked like that one, and it's like eating his brain. Yeah. It's kind
must
of funny.
Be paying homage to the Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the Lighthouse.
Right.
Yeah, it's like an interesting like cleanup job for the first film.
Yeah,
and I know
it doesn't totally ignore its existence, but it also is really trying. You don't need to ever watch the first one to understand this one, but it doesn't totally like clean the slate of its existence. You know,
is it technically supposed to be like still? Is it supposed to be continuing after Suicide Squad?
It is still in this universe because Harley even makes a reference to like Joker in it.
Yeah.
Very subtle one, but
they don't even say his name.
Yeah,
but
this is the only movie where I didn't find Harley Quinn annoying too. Because I watched some of Birds of Prey and I thought it was a little annoying, and I found her a little annoying in the first one too, but I actually really liked her in this one.
Harley Quinn, she wasn't the strongest for me.
Not the strongest, but I didn't dislike her.
Like I hated her less in this.
Yeah,
In fact, there were some parts, some like emotional parts, where I found myself kind of empathizing for her.
Some of the humor with her was like a little. All right, I'm not really.
Walking back and forth.
Yeah, like some of this, there's definitely some humor where I'm like, okay, it's not that funny, but I mean, comedy. A lot of comedies have jokes that don't hit, so I'm like, okay, there's a few jokes here that just aren't funny, and I'm okay with that.
It doesn't really ruin my overall experience
her
of the
action
film.
sequence I thought was sick.
Yeah,
it's all it has like all the animated
all the
stuff,
flowers and such,
and there's like the 2D little animated birds and stuff at the end. It was cool, and like the flowers, I was like, this is rad. I like it.
Like it makes no sense, but it's still cool.
Yeah, the
like,
choreography is fun and really cool.
Yeah,
and the way it's filmed, it's actually like I really like a lot of the camera work in this movie too. There's some like cool little I don't know, whenever I watch comic book movies I always just expect the most, at least nowadays. Not like, I mean, you can go back and watch like the Sam Raimi movies and this doesn't apply, but a lot of comic book movies nowadays, the actual filmmaking, like camera work and editing, are usually just really not bad. They're just like standard. Like they just get the job done, and you don't watch these movies and pay attention to the cinematography or the lighting or the camera work. You're just paying attention to the action on screen.
Right.
But with this movie, you actually are noticing, I noticed at least, like, oh, I really like how this movie looks, like color grading wise. There's some really fun camera work, especially like when they're on the bus and they're doing like the quick, I don't know the term for it, but it's like quickly panning back and forth during the conversation instead of just cutting. It's like the camera's like swiftly moving to them. There's some cool little snap zooms. There's a lot of cool looking camera work and editing. I love how it's like divided into chapters, and they always have something in the environment like have the text instead of just white text on screen. It'll be like, the fire is going to spell out the thing, or this wind will go by and all the branches will spell out like part one. Or
it was so different, and like most films would not do something like that, but James Gunn's just like, I'm going to have the fire spell out also the chapter of the film.
Also the title drop was sick. I love it. It's just a fun. I like when I watch a movie and I can tell they had fun in the editing room, you know? It's like, oh, they're actually putting in some effort to make this visually really appealing and fun, you know? Super unique. And
the music selection was not cancerous.
The music was like, James Gunn knows how he's kind of like Quentin Tarantino, where it's like he really knows how to apply copyrighted music that fits the movie really well, instead of just feeling like a cheesy cop out. Like, we're gonna play a Queen song here. He always chooses music that is not like, it feels like music he actually likes. It doesn't feel like, okay, we're gonna put in "We Are the Champions" by Queen. Like it feels like is like when there's the sequence where they're walking through the rain and that a Pixies song starts playing, and it's not it's not like one of their most popular songs or anything. I was like, that,
it was just perfect for
I
the
loved
mood.
it, but I was like, that was a weird, like, I would have not expected them to choose that Pixies song, but I thought it was super cool. And they open up with a Johnny Cash song. And it was cool. Really, really fun music choices that they were, I don't want to say distracting because that seems bad. I noticed them. I was like, oh, good song choice, but I wasn't like distracted from the movie. I just like enjoyed. I noticed it, and it was like, oh, this is like working really well. This scene, you know?
It wasn't just like 10 seconds of a song and then go into another one, and then to another one.
The original one was, the original movie was edited by a company that edits trailers. So you can really tell, because they're like, all right, this scene ends, another song. This scene ends, another song. Okay.
And I wanted to talk about like the whole thing with the original film and like David Ayer
release
and
the
such.
Ayer cut.
Which isn't going to happen because David Ayer didn't even want to do it, but he decided to make that tweet, which I get it. It seems that Warner Brothers has screwed over quite a few directors with their films. And like I totally
have a take on this that I'll let you finish.
We talked about the Snyder Cut a couple episodes ago. And, you know, totally get the reasoning for like releasing. If an Air cut was released, I would watch it for sure.
I would be curious, but
Yeah.
I don't think it would be good.
Yeah, I feel like Warner Brothers' response, even though they ruined the film, to like doing what they did was just the original cut was just not good, and so they
Right.
tried to make it like as flashy as possible and like. I guess get rid of all the Jared Leto footage, whatever
they tried to
did.
make the marketing really colorful and quirky, and then the movie was not that, and they did reshoots to make it more funny and stuff.
Yeah.
But
like just looking at the material, it doesn't look like that there's a lot there in the first place.
it's still a big dumb movie where none of the writing is good, the characters are boring, and it ends with a big blue laser. Like it's not interesting. And Jared
Big
Leto's
laser in the
performance as
middle.
Joker isn't good, and I don't want to see more of it. If he was really good in the movie, but he was only in it for a minute, then I'd be like, oh, I want to see more. But he was really bad in it, so why would I want more
Yeah.
of that? And I have a take on this where a lot of people are like, well, Warner Bros. Changed his movie in post, and he deserves to have his cut released. Well, every single person who works for a Marvel or a DC or a Warner Bros., their movie gets altered by the studio.
Yep.
Big studio movies are never fully someone's vision, except for like even this new Suicide Squad movie, The Suicide Squad. It is mostly James Gunn's movie, but there is still some level of studio being like, maybe do this.
Yeah.
So some directors may have more influence than others, but the difference is like James Gunn also wrote it too. So like his writing comes through, even if there are some some studio meddling, like his actual skill will still shine through and be really good.
Yeah.
But with this, David Ayer also is just, he's never made a movie I like. He's directed a lot of
What
bad
else has
movies.
he done?
He did Bright. He did He did some movie called Fury. Which I heard,
with
I heard
Brad
that
Pitt?
I heard that's like as close. I heard that's like as close as he's gotten to making a pretty good movie.
I still haven't seen it.
I don't really know anyone that really likes it that much, but in terms of his movies, that's apparently the best one. The Tax Collector, which is the movie where Shia LaBeouf plays a Mexican.
Oh, great.
Like he just does a lot of really kind of the Dirty Dozen. Like he just doesn't really make great movies. And
Is there a remake of The Dirty Dozen?
I guess that's what
Because there's
he's
an
making.
original film from like the 60s.
I saw it on his
That was a
Letterboxd,
classic.
but it is slated for. It just says The Dirty Dozen. It says there's a remake happening by him eventually. It doesn't have a
Okay.
date though, but his directing isn't. I don't really like his style that much.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really made anything where people are like, whoa, yeah, he is a strong director. He has such a strong style and personality behind his movies. And so when it comes to this Suicide Squad movie, it's like, one, you got to direct the whole thing. You didn't have a family member that died, and you had to leave set, and you didn't have another director come in and finish it for you and do reshoots.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you made your movie. Warner Bros. Meddled with some of the editing, but you still directed the whole movie.
Yeah.
So it's like you are not in it's not a Zack Snyder. It's not a Snyder Cut situation. It's like so far from being a Snyder Cut situation, in my opinion, because Snyder, I still don't like I still don't like the Snyder Cut that much, but it is way better than the original one.
Right.
Like way better. Like you can tell that movie got screwed, and they took advantage of him being offset to make it as like general audience friendly as possible. You can tell that movie got messed with.
Yeah.
And
Still not great.
They took advantage of him not being around to change his movie, and with the original Suicide Squad, that's not what happened. They just messed with it in the editing room, which happens with all of these big studio movies.
Yeah, and granted, it was done horribly.
Yeah.
But still, like, just looking at the source material, the editing wasn't the only issue with the film.
No, it was the writing, it was the acting, the color grading, even just the cinematography, like the camera, it was just boring, like...
And honestly, more Jared Leto Joker would not have improved.
Even the characters just were lame. Like Rick Flag in the original one, I didn't even when the new one was being announced and I saw trailers and stuff, I didn't even realize that Rick Flag, the dude in the yellow shirt in the new one, I didn't realize that he was the army dude from the first movie. Because they like changed him and made him so much better.
Oh yeah, his characters improved upon.
He actually
for sure.
has like a purpose and has a personality. And in the original one, he's just like has a dumb goatee, shaved head, wears
and
an
he's
army
in love
getup.
with the witch woman.
Yeah, like he doesn't. He's so uninteresting and has no purpose. So yeah, you could re-edit it. You could have some deleted scenes, all that.
Yeah,
but the actual stuff that was filmed is not great.
Yeah.
You know? Not to say that people can't enjoy it.
You're right. And that's the trouble that I have.
But I don't think that there's a secret masterpiece hiding behind this.
Right. And even so, you know, there's a whole group out of there, you know, a lot of the Zack Snyder and David Ayer social justice warriors.
Yeah.
You know, that's fine if you really would want to prefer, you know, like release the Ayer cut, you know, but don't make people feel bad for enjoying this new film.
Yeah.
Because there's literally people out there that are like making others feel bad and they're still like bringing up the James Gunn tweet thing.
Yeah.
And like calling him a pedophile.
So
and
dumb.
like that was brushed away years ago.
And it's funny because I still think the whole situation is really funny because that happened. He got fired from Marvel, and then DC was like, "You can make Suicide Squad for us."
Yeah.
And then Marvel was like, "No, wait, come back." And make, so now he's just making more movies.
It's Marvel and
it's
DC.
like, oh, it was technically
it worked out. I guess.
I guess it was actually a good thing that happened. You know.
Yeah, but still, like, it's fine if you don't like the new Suicide Squad, but just let people enjoy.
Yeah.
It's just a comic book movie.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go all up in arms because, I don't know.
I empathize with people who felt this way for the Snyder Cut situation. I don't get the rage for the David Ayer thing.
Well, they're just all mad at Warner Brothers now. So it's related to the Zack Snyder thing. And so they're like, oh, they did the same for David Ayer.
Yeah.
You're
They
not
really
allowed to
did
like
it.
this new James Gunn movie because they screwed him over.
Yeah.
And
They don't realize that, and these are the people that really think like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and stuff are like the best movies ever made too. And the thing is, if
that's fine if they think that.
yeah, it's totally fine. Like, nothing wrong with that at all. But I don't think they realize that Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, all of these, I don't think they grasp that those are not fully unfiltered Zack Snyder movies. If if he got to make the Justice League and the family situation with him didn't happen and he got to stay and finish his movie, it would not be the Snyder Cut.
Not that it is now.
Like,
no.
the Snyder Cut was specific.
It still would have been at least at most 2.5 hours.
Yeah, because HBO was like, "Hey, just do what you want," because it's like a marketing campaign now,
Which I think was a detriment to the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, but like if he had just made his movie, it would have been messed with by Warner Bros. To fit a more theatrical friendly type of release, you know?
Right.
And it still would have technically been the movie he was going to make, but it would have been cut down in some way still. And that's what happened with Batman vs Superman, because like the extended cut of that is like an hour longer or something. And Man of Steel, like all of the movies that they love were messed with in the same way that the original Suicide Squad was messed with. They all get meddled by Warner Bros.
But no one's calling for the Snyder Cut of those ones.
I think it's just they're trying to cause a domino effect. Like they want any movie that got bad reception that they liked, they want some secret hidden masterpiece version to be there so it can come out and everyone's like, oh, you were right, like this director actually was a genius. And here's my advice to people who really like the original Suicide Squad.
Sit down, son.
Because clearly the people that want an Ayer cut like the original one and just want more of it, right? Here's my advice. It is okay that you like a movie that has bad critical reception. It is okay to like a movie that is considered bad by a lot of people. Take
it from Mitchell.
I unironically love Twilight. I unironically really like the first Twilight movie. I loved Old. I love a lot of movies that are considered bad by a lot of people. And I am okay with that, and I don't need a reason to
I
justify
don't believe
it.
you that you say you unironically love Twilight. Just the way you talk about it, it seems like
I
ironic
do-
as all get out.
The first one.
Okay.
The rest of the movies are really hard to sit through sometimes, but I still think they're hilarious. But the first one, it's a bad movie, but I genuinely like have a good time watching it.
Okay.
It's fun in a
I
fun
still think that's technically ironic, enjoying
technically, but there are parts where I'm like, this movie sometimes actually looks nice. I really like the music choices. I find the performances goofy, even if it was unintentional. The baseball scene, I'm like, it's just like an anime baseball scene. And I'm like, I think part of me is like, sometimes I feel like they knew how silly and dumb this movie was. So I wouldn't say I legit think it's an amazing movie, because it's not. It's really bad in a lot of regards, but I have an unironically good time watching it, and there are some things I unironically think are good.
Okay.
But
anyways.
but yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, if you like a movie and it's considered bad by a lot of people, it's okay to just be like, yeah, I like it, and I don't really mind that. You know, you don't have to just like movies that are popular. And,
Yeah, and you don't have to try to convince everyone to like it so that it's no longer like unpopular.
I think that's the thing, is like people hate that they like something that gets critically panned, and a lot of fans make fun of it. So, we have to rally for the air cut so we can release a better version of it so people will like it, so I can feel vindicated and justified in liking this. So it's like, yeah, we're here on our podcast making fun of the Suicide Squad and Jared Leto and stuff. But if you like those things, we're not making fun of you. We're making fun of the movie, but we're not making fun of people that like it. But we will make fun of people that get really defensive over liking it and are aggressive over people liking the new one.
And we will kill you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, I don't know, just be you and enjoy
Be
what
you
and
and
enjoy what you enjoy, and let other people enjoy what they enjoy as well.
Don't make them feel bad. And
honestly, liking the new movie is not like a crime against artistic intent with David Ayer. You know, some people probably love his movies, and that's fine. You know, but look, it was a big Warner Bros. multi-$100 million IP movie. Like, it was never going to be a fully unfiltered David Ayer movie.
Right.
Watch his other movies for that. Don't watch a DC superhero movie for an unfiltered David Ayer movie.
Yeah.
You know,
even other non-DC movies.
Yeah.
You know, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's the film industry. Your film is going to get changed by the production company.
Exactly.
So, but
Warner Bros. And like Warner Bros. Does suck. They really do. They're a big reason why the Hobbit movies were so bad.
Oh yeah.
So it's
and
not,
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. It's like exactly. It's like, it's not that they don't meddle and screw up things, but you're never gonna get a pure 100% unfiltered, artistically intended film by a director that is making a movie for $1 billion company. It's just not gonna happen, and that doesn't mean they're gonna be good. It's like, look, getting back to the Suicide Squad, that is still a big $1 billion IP for Warner Brothers, but it was just really fun. It's not like a masterpiece, but it's just really good and really fun. And that's because the person who wrote it like knew how to write characters and knew how to develop things and have an interesting plot and
be
have fun with
self-aware the whole time.
Yeah.
So sorry about that rant. We love you all, Snyder Bros and other people alike. I gave the Suicide Squad an 8 out of 10.
I also gave it an 8. I think it's like it's up there for one of my favorites so far this year. Not that there's really a lot of competition right now, honestly, but
by score, it's tied with the Green Knight for me this year. But I technically like the Green Knight more.
Yeah,
but So was that all we wanted to say about the Suicide Squad?
I'll probably just quickly mention a couple other things since I didn't talk about the movie too much, but the actual movie at least. But yeah, Polka Dot Man was my favorite. He was super funny and actually had a bit of character. King Shark was basically just Groot, but a little stupider and a lot more violent, and I loved it. More
dialogue, oddly enough.
Yeah. And Sylvester Stallone was incredible casting for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just visually, this movie was eye candy sometimes. I loved it. It was super funny, the bit where they're in the forest near the beginning killing all the people in the camp, and it's revealed that those were actually good guys.
Yeah.
And they just murdered like their whole camp of people that were on their side by accident.
Yeah.
It was genuine, like, some of the humor did not land, but a lot of it did.
Most of it did.
Like I laughed out loud. I laughed out loud a lot in the theater watching it.
Yeah,
and had
same.
an exciting conclusion, and yeah, it was super fun, and I honestly would not mind watching it a couple more times.
Yeah,
super good.
I like the part where
John Cena was amazing too.
Oddly enough, he was pretty good.
He was like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
I've never liked him in anything, but he was
never liked him in
cast.
any movies. But obviously, he's like famous as John Cena for a reason.
Yeah,
because he was a good entertainer as a WWE wrestler.
Perfect cat. James Gunn knows how to take these like weird people and actors.
Weird people.
And, like, because Dave Bautista was kind of like a John Cena, so he was just a wrestler, and he made him. You know, he utilized him in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now Dave Bautista's in because of that is getting to be in real movies, like he was in Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
So
and he
cool.
technically he pretty much made Chris Pratt's career. Like Chris Pratt was famous for Parks and Rec, but
in
that's
terms
all
of
he
movies,
was. But he was mostly just known as like the chubby guy, a chubby, lovable guy on Parks and Rec.
He made him into an actor that studios want as an action star now.
Yeah.
Like people want him to be the super sick action hero now instead of just the goofy guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he's
like both of them.
The way he uses, which is kind of funny because I've compared him to Tarantino with his use of songs, but he kind of does the same thing Tarantino does, where he'll take like a weird unknown person or actor who hasn't done anything and like use them really well.
Yeah.
Kinda. And he kind of does the same thing with actors, and
Yeah. Cool. All right, those were our thoughts of the Suicide Squad. We both thoroughly enjoyed it, and recommend you guys check it out if you're okay with watching a very graphic R-rated comedy. Basically,
I know my mom's listening. I wouldn't recommend you and Dad watch it.
Mom, don't watch it.
It's really, really violent.
Don't do it.
And gory, but it's like. It's really funny though, but you guys wouldn't like it. It's really lots of swearing and blood.
Yeah.
Don't ground me.
You don't even live with them anymore.
Yeah.
They just call you, son, you're grounded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't go to work for a week, sorry.
All right. Well, that was all about the Suicide Squad. We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to be back to talk about a video game.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Love you. Bye.
Your mission is to destroy every trace of something known only as Project Starfish. Any questions?
Starfish is a slang term for a butthole. Think there's any connection?
No.
No. All right. Let's get it. This is suicide.
Well, that's kind of our thing.
I'm a superhero!
Where's my dad?
I want to get you out of here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
Ratatouille, what do you got?
Bird.
Now it. Stay off the comm.
Hey, Mitchell.
What?
Have you ever have you ever had a lot to say and you're like, I want to start a podcast?
Is this an ad?
I'm just starting casual conversation, Mitchell.
Well, yes, I do want to use Anchor FM. Is that what it is?
Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor and you've always wanted to start your own podcast, it's the easiest way to make a podcast?
I don't think I'd be really good on a podcast.
Well,
if I'm being honest.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Mitchell. Let me explain.
Why are you talking like that?
There are a few good things why Anchor is the easiest way to start a podcast. Number one, it's free. Because you know, like how before you had to like buy your own website in order to have a podcast and all that stupid crap.
Yeah.
Number two, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer.
Just like this.
Yes.
And then put lots of explosions and squeaky clown sounds.
So many squeaky clown sounds. Number three, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, who own us now, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
Nice.
And I forgot what number I'm on, but the next one, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So you can have like one listener and you'd make tons of 5 cents.
Where's my
Maybe
money?
more if you had more listeners.
I haven't gotten any money from this.
It's everything.
You holding out on me?
It's everything.
We'll talk after.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's that easy.
Or else.
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see? Man committed a sin, disturbing the life cycle of nature, the original sin that man is responsible to. To protect the life cycle, I have made a creature to rule over mankind. This is the final battle.
Let's do it. Why? I just stopped recording and he does that. That's disgusting, man. So immature.
Wait, it didn't even show up on the audio track.
It might have. It's just really quiet.
True, yeah.
Try it again so that everyone can hear the magnitude and majesty of this fart sound.
Okay, I'm over it. I'm 5.
So I've never really thought that like fart jokes are funny, but I find
as
it
I've
hilarious.
gotten older, I've just stopped caring, and now I find them hilarious.
I think people who think that they're hilarious make me laugh.
We're going in this big loop in this world where it was ironic humor for a while, where it's like we laugh at stuff that's not funny because it's cringy, and now we're just falling back in line to where we associate these things with ironic humor, so just seeing them, even if it's not ironic, is now funny because we associate it with the irony. So now it's just looped back to just those things are now just funny again.
Yeah, and for me, like I watch Game Grumps on YouTube, and they freaking love fart jokes. They like just get into hysterics when they're like doing fart sound effects, and that makes me laugh just because I love it when they crack up.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that I'm laughing at fart jokes.
Oh, you are. Don't worry.
Okay. Cool.
They work in the lighthouse.
Yeah.
Best, most classy fart jokes of all time.
What was another film recently where there was a lot of fart jokes, but it was like a really good movie?
I just like one good fart joke. If it's like 20,000 fart jokes in one movie, I'm like, stop, please.
I can't think of what that movie is. But it's like
a fart joke is like a good dessert. You don't want too much of it.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise you just feel
exactly. There's a science to the fart joke. You can't have like too much at the same time. And as long as you're not some creepy Cartoon Network show that like fetishizes farts.
Yeah.
You ever heard about that?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's weird. You can like look it up on YouTube. There's like those older Cartoon Network shows where you're like, man, I guess I never realized how
old cartoons
they made
have a
it
lot
weird.
of weird, gross, like fetishy things. It's weird.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
Don't like it.
Yeah, don't support it. Okay.
Outer Wilds is a video game.
We are going to talk about Outer Wilds.
So I'll give the context and backstory for this. So, a few months back, one of my friends was like, bro, dude, doodly dude, broham, play Outer Wilds, it's really good. And I said, no, I'm not going to play it. It looks bad. And I didn't play it. And then it was on sale. And I was like, actually, it looks kind of cool. So I bought it, played it for a bit. And then I was like, it's pretty good. And then I forgot about it for a few months. And then I went back to it and started over. And I got really, really into it. And I was like, man, this is like really addicting. And I played it like every day until I beat it. Was blown away. The ending made me cry. And I love everything about it. Soundtrack, atmosphere, the design of it. Just everything. And it became one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 5 now, like of all time.
Well, we gotta delete our top 5 video games episode
because there's a lot of elements of my top 5 favorite games, like with Metroid or like Majora's Mask and some Zelda stuff and Shadow of the Colossus. There's a lot of design philosophy that all correlates and comes together in this game. It has the time loop aspect of Majora's Mask. It has this freedom, figure it out with no hand-holding aspect of Shadow of the Colossus. It has this kind of sci-fi space exploration, atmospheric theme of Metroid. It's a really good mesh of like all my favorite games.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I really, really adored it. I became a little obsessed with it. I watched a documentary about the making of it, which blew me away at how they were able to even design this game. It just became an obsession, and I really loved it. And I was like, that'd be interesting to talk about. And I wasn't like, oh man, Clifford's gonna love this game, but I was really just curious what your impression would be, because you don't really play like indie games that much, and you
really not at all.
Yeah, and you haven't played anything like this, and you don't have much experience with indie games, so I was like, I don't know if you'll like it, but I'm just curious to see like what his experience it would be.
I played Limbo. That was an indie game.
Yeah,
Slender.
Oh my god, the best indie game of all time.
It's a masterpiece.
But yeah, I got really into it, became obsessed with it, and just kind of had the random idea of us talking about it on here because we don't really do video game episodes that much, and I was like, that'd be an interesting one.
I mean, literally, we've only done 2.
Yeah.
It was a 2-parter of us listing off our favorite video games.
Yeah.
And video games are a very hard thing for us to talk about, as evidenced for this episode.
Yeah.
It obviously took a while for me, and so because usually we can't talk about something unless we've both played it or watched it, whatever. And
otherwise it would just be one person talking.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of trouble with finishing video games.
Yeah.
Which
is especially bad for a game like this, because it's kind of like a Metroid game, which everyone who plays Metroid is going to know what I'm talking about. If you play a Metroid game and you are like, I'm going to take a break, and you don't play it for a couple weeks and you go back to it, you're like, what do I do? Where am I? Where do I go? I don't know what to do. I'm going to start over.
Yeah.
And you get confused. And it's kind of a very similar thing with this game, because Outer Wilds, I'll give a little explanation of what kind of game this is for people who don't know.
Yeah, explain the concept of it.
So,
and do we want to say spoilers now or like later?
I actually don't know if I want to do spoilers at all. Because if you spoil this game, and even people who are like, I don't know if I'll listen to the spoiler, because even sometimes I'll listen to like a movie podcast and I'm like, I don't really care, and I'll just listen to the spoilers, and then I'll go back and be like, man, I kind of wish I didn't do that. And if you know spoilers for this game, which honestly, to give spoilers, I would just have to be like, "Oh, this is how you solve this thing." I think it's still easy to talk about without spoilers.
Okay.
Because if you spoil solutions for this game, it's impossible to undo that in your brain. Because the thing with this game, which that will be a good transition into what kind of game this is. So Outer Wilds, it's made by Mobius Digital. It's an indie game that started out as a college project that ended up becoming so popular that they developed it, brought on a team, and made it into a full game. And it's think of like Edge of Tomorrow or Groundhog's Day, where every time you die, it's a time loop. You start off on your home planet in the same spot, and every time you die, it restarts and you go back there. So So the star of your solar system explodes, and it causes a time loop. And every 22 minutes, the sun explodes and kills you. So you wake up on your home planet, and you have 22 minutes to go around this universe. You leave your planet, you fly to other planets, and
and you're an alien, by the way.
Yeah, you're an alien. It's first person. You have a ship and like a spacesuit, and it's all done without loading screens. You fly out of your planet, and there's a few other planets you go to explore. And it doesn't tell you what to do or where to go. It's just, I go here, I'm going to explore, figure out an answer, and it's like a mystery. It's almost like a detective kind of game.
Yeah.
You go here, oh, this is weird, I'm learning about this thing. Oh, it told me that I can go to this place and figure this out, so I'm going to go there. Oh, now it's basically just doing that. Mm-hmm. And you go in any order you want. So no two people are going to play this game the same. A lot of people might go to a similar place at the start, but it's really up to you to just explore on your own merit, figure it all out on your own, and just get answers. In a good way, I kind of explain the progression of this game is it's like Metroid, where in a Metroid game, let's say, for example, you come to a location where you need to get on this ledge, but it's too high, and you don't have the gear to get up there. Eventually you get boots that let you jump higher. Oh wait, I remember that one ledge I couldn't reach. I'm gonna go back there because now I know I can get there.
Yeah.
It's kind of that idea, except in this game you don't ever get new gear or anything. It's all knowledge
for me.
Yeah.
I've never liked leveling up in games.
Right.
But
There's no levels, you don't get new items, it's all knowledge based. Your brain is basically you're basically upgrading your brain.
Yeah.
Is what you're doing instead of in the game. So you learn the function of a thing. And the cool thing about this is it's not like you activate something and there's code in the game that triggers it to where now you can go do this thing. No, if you know the answers to this game, you can just beat it. If I started a new game, I would be able to beat it in 5 minutes because I know the answers. So that's what's
once
weird.
You play it, you can't really experience it again.
It's kind of impossible for me to actually play this game again because I just know what to do. And because you can successfully do anything at any point, I would basically just have to pretend I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, well, I know how to get to the core of this planet. But when you get there, it's like, wait, I'm trying to get through. I don't know what I'm doing. And you figure out, oh, well, you have to do X thing to activate Y thing. And you could do that from the start. You just didn't know you could.
Yeah.
So it's very meticulously designed to, even to the point where it's really hard to accidentally figure these things out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really insane how they designed it and where they made it to where no one could just accidentally, come across solutions.
Right, yeah, but it's not like it's all like hidden,
Yeah.
Like they don't hold your hand, but your next objectives are usually pretty obvious,
Yeah, like
it's laid out for you.
You have a pretty obvious objective, but it's more of how do I complete this objective. You kind of know what you should do. It's just how do I get there? How do I solve it? It's just problem solving and exploring. That's like all it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of game it is. And essentially the point is just explore this universe, figure out answers so you can figure out what's happening. And eventually you get enough knowledge to where you know how to get to the end of the game. So yeah, it's really, really unique, and I've never played another game like it.
Yeah, it is incredibly unique, and I feel like I did watch the documentary for it.
Oh, nice.
And it just kind of made me realize the uniqueness of it and just like the amount of work that they put into like building this world.
Yeah, it's
and
really
this universe.
crazy.
And I really appreciate it. I just personally had a little problem playing it myself, and it's a combination of a lot of things for me. Like ultimately, I think this game is amazing, especially for an indie game. And honestly, if more like video game developers, like bigger names, like paid more attention, it could be monumental. Honestly.
Yeah, like I would love to see a big AAA game do something like this.
Yeah,
like it'd be crazy.
Yeah, and we'll go into like a lot of those things. The troubles that I had with playing the game, it almost has
it's really
it's almost kind of a detriment that I had to play it for the podcast. But at the same time, the podcast was the thing that was like motivating me to get back to it.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, the game stressed the heck out of me.
Yeah, it's a super stressful because it's you have a limited time each cycle. So it's like, I have 5 minutes left to do this thing.
Yeah. And I'm learning that I'm just kind of like scared of space. And I get a little bit too emotionally involved in video games. Kind of like, I kind of like do what you do with movies. You get pretty into movies emotionally.
Oh yeah.
I get into video games, especially if they're first person, because it's like my brain is like, that's me.
Exactly,
playing the game. And there's a lot of like, it's a dark game at points, and so like. It wasn't a thing that I was like willing to return to every day, even though it's a beautiful game.
Right.
It was just kind of stressful for me, and
yeah, totally. It was pretty stressful for me too. But I'm kind of, it's kind of that type of stress, which this isn't to say like, well, you should have felt this way, because I totally get why people, because even at times I'm like, man, this is like stressing me out. I need to take like a break for a bit and come back to it tomorrow or something, because it's like, man, it's very strict time management. Even like learning about the ancient race that's extinct and finding all their dialogue, there's a lot of like sad stuff. It's just like very emotionally intense at points, and and it's just having to do things very particularly, especially there's like one planet that's basically a horror. It turns into a horror game for a certain planet.
Yeah.
And that stuff actually like terrified me. There's a ton of stuff in the game that's really stressful. So it's not going to be a game for everyone. If time management and reading a lot doesn't sound super fun to you, it probably wouldn't be your thing. But I get really invested in stories and world building and stuff like that, and I absolutely adored the world building this game does, because you are essentially doing the world building yourself, which I think is super cool. But
and I'm kind of learning more and more lately that video games are becoming more of a escapism and stress relieving for me, and so like. A lot of days, I'm like, I don't feel like dealing with this.
Yeah.
I'll just play Red Dead 2, because everything is just kind of like laid out and simple and everything, and
you can just explore and do whatever you want on your own time.
I don't have to fly up into space, but also like I can go through a story that's
I'm not
like
going to die every 22
me.
minutes.
Right, yeah. So it was a little hard for me to get through it, and ultimately, I mean, we'll just be completely honest with you guys. Mitchell kind of ended up coming over, and
I had to help him a lot.
Yeah, it sped
which
up
is fine.
The process, and it's like I said, it was almost kind of a detriment, because I feel like the ending and everything probably would have been a bit more emotional, impactful to me if I did play the whole game myself. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't have finished it months from now. Honestly,
to be fair to you, this is a really especially for someone who doesn't play a lot of indie games that are really heavy on puzzle solving and exploration. And playing games that really, like, you did Shadow of the Colossus on your own, which was great, but this is like the problem solving of Shadow of the Colossus, but multiplied like a million, because that's all you do in the game is. And with Shadow of the Colossus, you still have like, okay, I follow the light, I go here, I need to kill this thing. It's just, how do I kill this thing? And this one's like, how do I finish this game?
Right.
Like, you need to figure out A to Z.
Right.
And like Shadow of the Colossus is like, all right, A to B, figure out what B is. All right, now go to C. And with this one, it's like you have no idea what to do at the start, and you have to figure out everything on your own. Like, even just on an exploration basis, where do I go? You don't even have like a vague goal until you find answers.
Yeah, and
it's a really intense game to play if you're not very familiar with games like this, and with it being really stressful. For me, like, I like games that challenge me and kind of make me... This is going to sound weird, but I like feeling dumb sometimes, because when I overcome that, it's so satisfying to me to die 100. This is why I like stuff like Dark Souls, because it's like, man, like, this is so hard and it's kind of frustrating me, but I'm really I'm feeling really persistent and you beat it. And it's like, yeah, I worked really hard to do that. And I feel like I really earned it on my own.
Yeah.
And I love that feeling. And it's kind of like a similar, I hate that I'm comparing it to Dark Souls. There's nothing to compare to Dark Souls, but just that aspect of failing over and over again and eventually overcoming something and being really frustrated.
Yeah.
Like some people just want to play a game and have fun. People don't want to be frustrated playing a game. It's kind of like, if we can like mirror this to a different form of media, and it's almost like a similar situation with me where movies are kind of like escapism for me. And I think that's why I don't really like super nihilistic, everything's bad and your life means nothing type of movies.
Yeah.
Like I don't like those because I like to watch movies as a form of escapism. But then with games, I'm okay with games that are really challenging and stressful.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the opposite with movies and games for us, I think.
Yeah, because like movies are in a sense escapism for me, but also I'm going into a movie like wanting a different experience,
Yeah. And I'm like that with games. I'm like, man, I feel like, especially with a lot of games nowadays, which you don't play nearly as many games as me because I have no life, but I've played. I'm not really as.
I don't have much of a life either, but I do other things too.
I don't play like every game under the sun anymore like I used to years back, but I've played like every open world game, every type of this or that, and I'm like, man, everything just feels the same. So when I find something that's really new, I get really excited, and I think that's why I latched on to something like this.
Yeah.
And also, like earlier, I said it has so many elements of like my top 5 favorite games, so it's kind of made for me in a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I really wish that I was the kind of person that this game was made for, because I really appreciate.
Maybe
it'll
plant a seed and start a little bit of curiosity.
Maybe, yeah, but like I remember, I felt like I had been playing the game for hours, and somewhat enjoying it a lot, and I got to a certain point to the game, and like I told you, I was like. It's like, oh, am I getting pretty close to the end? And you're like, no, you're
I was like,
not
wow,
even halfway there.
I was like, you have so much stuff to do.
My heart sank. I'm like, oh.
I was like, no, you have like not gotten.
Because also, I'm just kind of a dummy dumb, and like there was like so many things that you showed me, and I'm like, man, I didn't even like venture out that far. Like it took me forever to realize that Giant's Deep wasn't just a planet full of water. Yeah, like I didn't even find.
Yeah, I think that's like a big. It's also just, I wouldn't say you're dumb. It's just the kind of games that you enjoy. Because for me, especially with stuff like Breath of the Wild, I love games that force you to figure it out on your own. With Breath of the Wild, you start out, it's like beat Ganon. And it's like, okay, I'll just go here, I guess. And a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people it's not like, and that's not to imply it's like, oh, well, you need your hand held. It's like having some kind of guidance in a game is still, it can be well designed, and that's not a bad thing. A lot of amazing games are very linearly structured. Yeah. But I particularly enjoy, even Shadow of the Colossus is linear in a lot of ways because you can't do anything in any order, Right,
but, it's just one monster after the other.
Yeah, which is why something like that works a lot more for you. But with games like Breath of the Wild or this, it's like, you just figure it out. Have fun, go do it. And some people it's overwhelming and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I feel
that's
bored.
why I could never like get into like Skyrim or anything. It's just like too much that I could do. But like a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 is like the perfect balance for me.
It has that open world, but when you do the campaign, it is just kind of like a linear game.
Yeah, you can explore and like do whatever you want and mess around, but ultimately, where the next point is to go to further on the story. Yeah, so that's like, just me, I guess. Like what I enjoy.
I would compare it to like some people. I'm actually unintentionally. I know this probably because of this video, but I just remembered where it was from. But the Nakey Jakey video where he was talking about Red Dead 2. Some people love Lego sets where it's like, here's your instructions, build it, you have a cool creation now. And some people just want a big bucket of Legos and they want to do whatever they want with it. Yeah. So it's kind of that difference where it's like one is not better than the other. Right. I could see why someone would look at a bucket of random Legos and be like, I made a cube. It looks bad. I don't like this. But they get a Millennium Falcon set and they're like, sick. Okay, all right, I'm doing this. Like they know what it's going to look like when they're done. And when you have a big sandbox and no real direction, you don't really know what your goal is. And when you don't have an end goal in mind, that will detract motivation for certain types of people.
Right.
But for me, I see that as I don't know what my goal is, and that's exciting because I have to go and figure it out.
Yeah.
But like the Lego metaphor, you know, some people are way more motivated to do something when they know what they're actually working for and what they have to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to having a big, messy box of Legos with no real direction.
Yeah.
So.
And I find it, after watching the documentary, I find it interesting that to learn that Outer Wilds was literally created as a response to Skyward Sword.
Yeah, because Skyward Sword, I love
it's
Skyward Sword.
notorious for like holding your hand.
Yeah,
right?
and I love Skyward Sword, and on it, actually the HD remaster is made it so much better too. But I've always liked that game, but I love the less linear Zelda games way more, like Majora's Mask, and like I love the 3D Zeldas, but Skyward Sword really did get a little overbearing with how like hand-holdy it was. And it's funny because he even mentions Wind Waker, where he's like, there's this mission where it's like, hey, this is a photo, figure out where it is, and it doesn't tell you where it's at. It's like, just go in on the map and figure out where it was. And he's like, what if I made a whole game about that kind of idea, that motivation? Yeah. So I always thought, I think that's super cool, you know?
Yeah, it's funny.
And that documentary, I think even if this game isn't for you, I'm kind of speaking to the audience too right now.
I mean, but you are talking to me though.
Also you, but I'm also including. But if this game doesn't sound like something for you, I still think it's interesting to play if you're have any interest in what video game design is like, and watching that documentary too, because it, on a technological sense, it blows my mind what they're able to accomplish. Because for people who know how video games work, there's a lot of illusions and trickery when it comes to making a game work. Like, let's say there's an open world game and you go into a building. When you're in that building, you're just in a black void. Now, that building is no longer connected to that open world. It puts you in technically a new area because now it has to load less. So it's using trickery. It's like, oh, you feel like you're just in this area, but it's not loading things that are really far away. Like if you froze it and went way over here, all the buildings and things would be really like low texture, because it can't have all of that loaded all the time because your console or computer would explode. Yeah. So there's all this illusion and trickery, and what Outer Wilds does is like that doesn't exist. Everything in this game is always alive and moving, because they talk about this at one point where they're like, because you have this tool in the game where you can send out a probe and take pictures, or if you leave your ship somewhere and fly somewhere else. So if you shoot a probe to one planet and then you leave your ship on another planet and then you are on foot on a separate third planet, those other two planets still need to be active because your probe and your ship need to be able to react to it. So there's like a planet where there's a big sand pillar sucking stuff up. If you leave your planet there and go on the opposite side of the solar system, your ship still needs to be able to get sucked up by that thing. So you might go back later and your ship is gone because it got sucked up by the planet. Or if you leave your probe on Brittle Hollow, which is a planet that's falling apart slowly and falling into the black hole in the center of the planet, if you leave a probe there and you keep taking pictures, eventually you'll notice, oh, that probe fell, like, because that planet is still active. Which means that those planets are always active and doing those things in the background, and there's no like tricks with it. You know, it's really, really crazy.
It's a constant it's an ongoing simulation.
It's
exactly what it is.
A simulation of a universe at all times. Which is crazy.
It's insane. There's like no other game. All the other games where like nothing happens unless you trigger it to happen. But in this game, everything is just happening, and I like how they put it in the documentary that like everything doesn't revolve around you.
Exactly.
Which is a great analogy to
You're
use.
Actually part of a universe.
Everything is revolving around the sun, and everything is just going to continue to move no matter what you do, and which if games did that, it would be monumental. But at the same time, when I think about it, one of the
huge,
reasons why it works is because it's a time loop.
Exactly.
Like, say if Red Dead 2 had that same logic, you'd be missing like key mission stuff, like Dutch is waiting in the bars, like, I've been here for 5 days. Where have you been?
Yeah. and the thing with Red Dead 2 is also it doesn't even need that.
Right. Yeah.
So it, like,
I was just using that as an example.
Yeah, totally. And it's fascinating too because, I think of stuff like Uncharted, and I watch a lot of weird speedrun videos and stuff, and it's like, so if you phase through this wall and skip this whole thing, none of the enemies will appear because they're triggered by you shooting the lock on this door to get through it. And it's like, so games have all these scripted sequences and code is activated by certain things, but in Outer Wilds you are just in a thing that is always active and always being simulated at all times, no matter where you're at. And even so much as like how gravity works, because there's a gravitational pull on all the planets, and like scientifically kind of accurate ways with atmosphere and how gravity works. So there's a part in the beginning where there's a tutorial type of thing, and you go into the zero gravity cave, and it kind of teaches you how to use your jetpack, and suddenly gravity starts getting a little lower, and then you go to the middle and it teaches you how to fix like a satellite, which is teaching you basically how to fix your ship if it breaks. And suddenly you're in this cave and you're just floating around. But it's literally simulating zero gravity, because you're actually in the center of the planet where all of the gravity is like coming to a center. Yeah. So it's not just, you went into this cave and they triggered it so that, this one specific area doesn't have gravity. No, the way gravity is simulated, it logically makes sense that there would be no gravity at this part of the planet. It's insane. It's it's so crazy. Like,
so much thought was put into it. Yeah. And you don't really realize it until like I didn't really fully realize it until watching the documentary, and just like, that actually is genius and wild that just like this small group of people was able to put this together. Yeah. And that's how I can appreciate it. And
it
give
like
it
a college project.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
like,
much.
Dude, you are a genius.
Yeah. There's a bunch of nerds getting together, but making a good game. Yeah. With a compelling story at the same time.
Yeah, like he got this one girl to come in and write all the text for the game.
Sister.
And yeah. And the story for it is just like the ancient race of the Nomai, and figuring out the story of what they were doing and why they were doing it, and and basically eventually explaining why the time loop is happening. And it's so cool. And even just in like a visual artistic sense, it's kind of crazy too, because a lot of games have a thing called baked lighting. Which, if you don't know what that is, if you don't know what baked lighting is, so a lot of games, not many games anymore use it. Some still do, but baked lighting is, it looks like there's a light source on a texture, but what it actually is it's just on the texture itself.
It's just changing the color.
It's just on that texture. It's not actually a simulated light source on that. It's just a texture to make it look like it's lit. Mm-hmm. So a lot of games nowadays actually have like a lighting engine, so where things will react to light and whatnot. But a lot of games still use baked lighting because it's really good for art direction. Mm-hmm. Because if you just have real light everywhere, some stuff will just start to look muddy, because real life isn't a painting, Right. So Outer Wilds is all simulated light everywhere, because the light source actually comes from the sun and, other things like lamps or whatever, but it's all, like, every aspect of the game is kind of simulated. Lighting, gravity, like the actual rotations of the planet. So even just stuff like that, like they managed to make it look like a pretty game without using visual trickery either. It's all pretty real,
Yeah, and it's not like, the most grade A graphics, of course.
Yeah.
But they make it work for them stylistically, the style of the game and the characters and everything.
Like when you're on the
you
Ember
accept
Twins,
it and you're like, all right, this is it.
Exactly. Like the Ember Twins, like, is just it's not that, oh, the textures are so good. It's just a cool visual of like the big sand pillar and these two planets. It's such a cool idea. Like, oh, the gravity from one planet is sucking all the sand over to the other, and one other planet has a big black hole in the middle and it's falling apart. One is just a gas giant filled with water and tornadoes. Yeah. And one is just like a forest planet. It's just very original ideas. And one's like and Dark Bramble is just a weird, creepy planet where it's with like anglerfish, infinite locations, and it's like a weird black hole type thing, and it's just so cool. And it's not just fire planet, ice planet, lava planet. It's like no, like
ice planet.
It's more of like
fire.
There's almost like a scientific theme for each planet.
Earth.
Like one is about black hole, one is about what's cyclones, one is about gravity because of the sand pillar thing. There's like a cool scientific theme instead of just a general visual theme, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and like just like talking about the home planet, Timber Hearth, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's a whole like foresty kind of planet with more like plantation than the other planets. And it's not like you look at the trees and they're like, oh wow, those are really realistic. Yeah. But like the art direction and the lighting just makes everything look charming.
Yeah,
you know?
and the music
and it just fits it. Oh yes, we cannot talk about this game without talking about the music.
Dude, it's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. It's so simple, but it's like I feel like the combination of it's kind of like folk music and banjo, but it's space, and usually
like atmospheric kind of.
Yeah, and there are a lot of like atmospheric synth tracks and stuff, but it's so untypical from what you would expect like a sci-fi space game to sound like.
Yeah,
but it's like you're in space flying your ship, and like the little banjo kind of fades in.
Yeah,
you know, and it's super cool in the aspect of you can hear the other astronauts playing all their instruments.
If you use your signal scope.
Yeah.
If you use your signal scope and just kind of point it around at any point in the game, it'll direct you to any of these astronauts that are just kind of spread out among the universe.
And they're all at a campfire playing an instrument. And there's actually, it's not required or anything, but there's a cool moment where if you're far enough away and all the planets align and you point at it, you'll hear them all playing the song in unison.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It like weirdly makes me emotional.
Yeah.
That's another
a great
reason.
Theme.
Yeah. That's another reason I love this game is and why it's kind of perfect for me is like there's such a big theme with music in this game and how it kind of connects us and keeps us together when we're far away from each other. But there's like a lot of stuff in this game that involves music, and I love that. It's super cool.
So Can I talk about sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say space, folk music, free exploration. It's just like so ideal for me, you know?
Yeah, and it's a really unique blend, not even just with the music, but the feel with like the, you know, your race of the game. You know, they're technologically advanced, but they also are just kind of a bunch of
hillbillies.
Yeah,
almost.
Pretty much. Yeah. Do you think it's not really a spoiler, but it has to do with the music, and it's kind of more about the theme, what I learned in the documentary about the composer.
Oh, yeah.
When they made the main theme.
I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so he decided with the main theme of the song, isn't it the one that just plays on the menu? Right?
Yeah.
So he decided to take his take that he recorded on the banjo 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And then he finished the track like just before it came out right there, just to kind of like continue with that theme of like
time
and continuation, you know. And
because there's I think there's like two banjos, one in the left track and one in the right or something, and the one in the left he recorded at like the start of the production of the game, and then I think literally a few days before the game came out, he recorded the other banjo.
Yeah.
So it's like one banjo's from the beginning of development and one is from the end. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
like,
it is really
It's
cool.
not like it's going to sound different, but it's just cool. It's cool to know that.
Yeah, it's a little kind of Easter egg to like once you know that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah.
And it works into the theme and story of the game too. Like, It's so... That's why I love this game. It's so smart, and it makes me... It hits my brain the way like a really good movie that makes you think does, you know, where I'm like, oh, like this theme meant that, and oh, there's these little details, and you learn about some of the pre-production and stuff, and it's just, there's so much care and love and artistic integrity behind everything, and I love the story in the documentary too, where the art director of the game saw them presenting the early build of the game that looked way different. He was like, man, I can make this game look better. So I did. So I got, he was like, wait, I can do that. I can actually get a job there. And then he got a job there and was like, yeah, now I'm the art director.
Wasn't the early like the first iteration of the game, wasn't it like there was like no story?
Yeah, no, it was just it was essentially
just a simulator,
kind of a glorified tech demo simulator. I think there was a way to beat it still, but it didn't really have a big ongoing narrative with it, and that whole ending is definitely wasn't in the original one. But he brought on his sister to like write all the text and stuff after they formed Mobius Digital. So it didn't really have much of a narrative focus in the early version, from what I know. But
it's just interesting. I saw some of the footage of the early game, and it's like, it definitely looks better.
One other thing that really blows my mind, I'm just like, how did you do this, like work like this, is the part where he's working on some of like the foliage and stuff on the design of one of the planets, but because it's like all simulated and stuff, and he's working on the planet, it's like technically upside down, so when he moves his mouse it's like reversed or something. So he's like, because of the way it is, he's like, you just kind of get used to it, because like it's just how they had to work. I can't really remember specifically what it was, but there's just so many things that went into making this where it's like, man, most developers would find a cheap, easy way to kind of skip around having to do stuff like that. But he was like, no, it was like really frustrating and hard, but like, I got used to it and just like kind of worked on it this way. Yeah. You know, and there's just a lot of dedication and whatnot. And
it's really impressive.
Yeah.
For sure. Other thing I like about this game, I mean, kind of going along with what we were talking about before, it does give you a great sense of reward when you're like discovering new things.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I first, like, there's like this underground city. It's not really a spoiler because it's like one of the first things that you discover. And it's just like this great feeling of like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
What is this? Because only before it's just like found like small areas, but like this is a whole underground city here. And for some reason at that point I thought I was almost done with the game. Yeah. Because it was such a big reveal.
Like,
I was like, I gotta be to the end almost. Yeah. I guess I underestimated the scope. The scope and like, I guess for lack of a better term, the length of the game. You know, you can't really say that. Video games don't really have length unless they have a ton of cutscenes.
True.
But I underestimated it because it was an indie game. So I didn't really expect it to like have such a huge scope as it did. So that's why I
like
thought
every
I was
planet kind of has
it.
like one big thing, really.
Yeah. And I just didn't explore enough to find like all the other things until you helped me and like pointed a lot of things out to me.
Like the planets really aren't that big, but they just so densely pack them.
Yeah.
You know, it's really impressive because honestly the game is really not that big. Like if you took all the landscape of these games, flattened them out and made one just big map, it probably would be like it would be like so small compared to something like Skyrim, you know, but they're all like spaced out in this big, you know, universe, like galaxy type map, so they're all spread apart, so it's just like it gives you this big sense of adventure, even though the planets themselves, they're not like
they're really just big spheres.
They're just big,
even though I love that
They're big levels on spheres. That's really all it is. It's like 5 levels, really. That's kind of it, but they're just so dense and
it makes them seem bigger than they are.
Exactly. It's really smart design and perfect utilization of space and technology, and it's the perfect example of knowing your limitations and pushing it to the extreme and using what you have at your disposal and getting every advantage out of it that you can. Because a lot of games are just like bigger is better and go hard and everything is overly textured but it's like, no, you know, it's not like this game has mind-blowing textures. It's not huge, but it's how you utilize your game design and get players invested in your world, that's really important, and that's why this game ends up being so effective, because they utilize their limitations as best as they can. Like,
Right.
games that have really intense limitations end up being the best, because they're like, okay, so, like, a good example is like the original Beyond Good and Evil game on PS2 or GameCube, I guess, is also another one of my favorite games. It's basically just like a Zelda type game that Ubisoft made back in the day, and I love it. But the game was supposed to be this big, huge open world thing where you could fly your ship out into space and go to other planets and do all this stuff. But they're like, we can't make this work. It's too big. So they put it down into this more smaller, like Zelda type adventure, and it was incredible because of that. And now they're trying to, with the Beyond Good and Evil 2, that'll probably never come out. They're kind of like, yeah, you can go into space and there's no loading screens and everything's simulated in real time, and all the planets are actually the size of real planets, and all the cities are handcrafted, and it's just like, it's like,
good luck
bigger
with that.
is not better. And the stuff that they've showed, I'm like, this is gonna be a bloated and like not well designed game, because they're trying way too hard to just make it big. It's like, being big does not make it good unless you have like 20 years to develop it and really intricately design everything. You know, like, I love Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot for its story, but exploring the open world is like cool and chill and stuff, but it's not like that map is huge, but it's not like there's really
Isn't it like the biggest map yet on a video game?
I think so, but it's
or at least at the time of its release.
But it's like there's not really a ton to do. And then, I don't know, it's like a lot of games just try to go really, really big, but then they don't know how to fill it up with content, you know? It's like, know your limitations, utilize what you have to the best of your ability. And I think Outer Wilds does that immaculately, because it's really not that big of a game, but it feels huge, you know?
Yeah, and with the whole, like, real-time thing, like, I'd love to see more of that, but I'd also love to see, like, how they make it like good for the game. Because like I said, the reason why it works for Outer Wilds is because it is a time loop.
Yeah.
And you get, like, if you're supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time, like before the sand filled up the place, you know, you missed your shot, but you can do it again.
Yeah.
You can die.
Like, I think
if
this game didn't do the time loop thing, I feel like it would not be nearly as good, because you would just be on planets. You would go to a planet and find everything possible on it for like 20 hours and then go to the next one, instead of, okay, I go here, I find this one thing, now it's it's hinting I should go to this other planet, okay, I'll go there, and oh shoot, my time ran out, and then you go to your ship and look at all the information you have, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I found that, I'll go check this out and stuff. So you're never. They said this in the documentary too. They did not want players to search every nook and cranny. You know, they didn't want you to overthink what you were looking at.
Right.
They were like, we just want you to go to a place, find a thing, and continue. Like, so if you didn't have that time loop and that time constraint, I think a lot of people would just like sit on one planet for like 3 hours doing everything.
Yeah.
And like kind of ruining the pacing and the structure of how the game is sort of naturally, loosely guiding you. And yeah, the time loop is just ingenious, you know?
Yeah.
I think it blows my mind that a game with no specific order or A to B structure of how you do things, most people kind of end up, like, if you look online, most people are like, yeah, it's like a 12 to 15 hour game. And almost everyone is like, yeah, like, that's kind of how long it took me. And yeah, there's some people who maybe had a harder time and it took them 20 hours. Some people who maybe beat it in like 8 or 9. But for the most part, a lot of people manage to have like a really similar intended experience when it comes to like length and you know, they'll put like when you find a text thing, like a scroll, they were like, yeah, we knew some people would probably miss something, so we would put like an extra one on a different planet somewhere, so maybe they'll find it there. And they're like really making sure that people get what they need, but it doesn't feel cheap, you know? Because there were like a couple times where I'm like, oh, I've read this before, okay, but they really naturally make it feel like They really make sure you get what you need.
Yeah.
Despite not telling you how to get it. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very thoughtful about the whole thing, really. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, incredibly impressed. And like I said, I wish that I was the kind of person that the game was made for. But
yeah, and what's interesting, I feel like because I helped you a lot and you took a lot of time away in between things, I feel like if you did try to replay it, you probably wouldn't remember a lot of it. Like, yeah, maybe it would be better now if you did try to replay it on your own, now that you've kind of essentially kind of loosely been guided through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like, I've honestly replayed it and just kind of ignored the final issue because I just wanted to read the story again.
Right, yeah.
So there still are ways to replay it, but if I put that game in right now, started a new game, had no save data, I could beat it in 5 minutes.
Right.
Which is
Show
crazy. That's such a big risk to
Outer Wild speedrun.
Yeah, to make like a $30 game. I think it was like $30, $20 or $30 is how much they charged for it. It's a really bold move to make a game where, yeah, you can beat it in like 10 minutes. Yeah. But it's intended to be like a 12-hour game, and worrying like, oh, but what if like a ton of people accidentally come across the solution? And what if someone just accidentally beat it? But they made it to where that's almost kind of impossible.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, and it's
especially
it's
with
brilliant.
like the dark bramble stuff. Like, there's no way that you're just gonna figure that out on the fly.
I always compare it to your brain, which the Varia suit is the suit in Metroid, and you like upgrade and get new gear for it so you can get through the game later on. Like, oh, now I can double jump. Now I have a beam that can burst through this kind of door. Your brain is the Varia suit of this game because, oh, I unlocked the knowledge of how to do this thing, so now I can go there and do that. So once you upgrade your brain completely, you permanently have like the final upgrade of the game because what you're upgrading is your knowledge.
Right.
You're not upgrading any stats in the game.
Right.
Yeah, it's intense. Like that, it's a big risk to make a game where there's even a 0.5% chance of that happening and someone being like, wow, why was this game only 20 minutes long? And it's like, crap, we didn't design it well enough. But
right, yeah,
pretty much everyone who plays it has not a similar experience in terms of the order, but they have a similarly paced experience, I should say.
If someone said that they honestly like beat it in the first 20 minutes the first time that they played it, I would not believe them.
I would just assume that they looked it up.
Yeah, I would not believe
Which there's
them
a mistake. A lot of people,
anything.
if you're listening to this and this has convinced you to play it, don't look up guides, because once you know an answer to something, you literally can't undo it and you ruin figuring it. It would be like looking up a guide for this game is legitimately a cheat code.
Yeah,
because it's the equivalent of, oh, I'm playing a Metroid game. What if I just unlocked all the gear right from the start?
Right.
It's like, well, then you could just go to the end of the game without doing any of it.
Yeah.
So there was one time where I looked up a hint, because there's some like threads online where people know they don't want the answers, so they'll just be like, what have you figured out? Okay, so you've done this. There's a couple places you could go. If you explore here, you might find something. So there's people online that have threads of like hints. Yeah. I would say if you get really stumped, there's no shame in doing that, but don't look up answers. Never.
Right. Don't do it or we'll kill you.
Yeah. If this sounds like a game for you. I mean, if this sounds like a game that you don't think you would enjoy or be great at, I mean,
I say if
at least watch someone play it.
That's what I was literally going to say. Yeah. If you don't think that this is a game that you could enjoy playing personally, look up a playthrough. I mean, I don't know of any playthroughs personally.
A ton of people, there's some people I know who've played it, like Vinny Vinesauce did a playthrough of it. That was really good.
Okay.
I don't know a ton, but yeah, a lot of people, I'll go in the comments on like the final episode and they'll be like, yeah, I didn't want to play this game myself, but watching it was like an awesome experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would...
Like watching someone go through all of it, and then kind of in your head, you're trying to problem solve it with them, even if you aren't playing it. You know?
So. Yeah, and I had a pretty good experience, like just kind of watching you do things for me mostly.
Because at one point I was like, do you want me to just kind of like get some stuff done for you? And
Yeah.
you can watch and I'll explain what's happening.
It
and
was
you're
more
like,
so for the benefit of the show.
because I didn't want like the ending to be like flooded with frustration, you know? So I was like, be honest with me. Do you want me to do some of this for you?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
And I didn't want to have to wait like another few months before we could record this.
I definitely would have taken a little longer. So.
Yeah. But you did hand me the controller for the very ending.
Yeah, the whole ending sequence I wanted you to at least play.
Yeah.
You know?
And
because that doesn't require much like problem solving. Or,
right.
It's pretty linear.
And we won't spoil it. I'll be as vague as possible. But it's a very, it's a really nice and like kind of like existential sort of ending to the game. And
I know people who like had like almost legitimate existential panic attacks over the ending of the game. They were like, this actually made me have to go sit down and think about life for a bit. And I was like, I thought they were kind of joking, but they're like, no, I'm like seriously like in shock right now. I was like, dang, all right.
Okay,
I was
so
like, well,
listeners, you have been warned.
It's
if
a
you're
very
prone to existentialism,
it is the definition of like existentialism.
Like,
because it's just crazy. Like ending made me cry, and I thought it was so beautiful, and I loved it.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of makes me wish that I had played through it all, because I feel like I would have gotten a bit more of an emotional response out of it. But still, I was still able to enjoy it. It's a very kind of like 2001-esque kind of ending.
Yeah.
With all things considered, I could comfortably, like, if I would rate it this game, I would comfortably give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Just because like I appreciate like so much everything that like went into it, even if it's probably not a game for me, and I don't know like when I would ever return to it.
Yeah.
But
sometimes I'll just play it just so I can see the ending again.
Yeah.
I just want to watch it. I'm like, yeah, man.
And maybe if I feel like just like exploring, you can totally do that.
I've done that before too, where I'm like, I kind of just want to fly around and like look at stuff, and now that I've beat it, it's like, well, I can just, it's fun to just read. Like, I want someone to like print and bound all the text of this game into like a cohesive novel.
Ooh,
that'd be so cool. I would love that because it is a lot of reading. It is a lot of reading. You're basically reading a book when you play this game.
Which I will say that may be one complaint that I may have is like when you're reading like all this text from like the Nomai civilization.
You really have to like remember character names with
it,
which can be hard. It can be hard to
do. A lot of the like science talk kind of just goes over your head.
Yeah, I love it, but I love Star Trek, so that's why I like that stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause it's just a bunch of
It'd probably be
nerds.
easier for me if it was like actual people talking, but since I had to read it, it's a little bit of a chore.
Yeah, there's no voice acting or anything.
Right, yeah. But, the game doesn't really need it.
Definitely.
That would be like one complaint that I would have, but that's also just like my dumb brain. So
that's not dumb. It's just you. It's your specific taste.
Yeah.
But you still,
as a dummy.
I like that even though you recognize it wasn't like completely a game for you. I'm glad that you're still kind of taking away more of a positive like impression from it.
Yeah.
Even though you recognize it's not totally something for you. I think it's always cool to try and do stuff like that with like movies or games where it's like, that like maybe I didn't really personally like love this a ton, but I understand like the importance or the hype of this, and I can really genuinely respect that. So
I just feel like there's too many people that just because it's not the kind of for any video game, it's not the kind of video game experience that they want.
Yeah.
And then they're automatically like, this game sucks.
So you think it's bad?
Yeah.
It wasn't for you? You think it's bad? It's like, no, it just wasn't for me. It's like, I'm trying to think of an example with like a game. Like Assassin's Creed games really aren't for me anymore, but I don't think they're